Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the BB Brains, starring myself, Kyle Dorr. And if I sound a little off to you tonight, it's not because I was crying about Adrian's eviction. I'm a little under the weather with the cold right now, so bear with me as I am congested to go through this whole podcast. Uh, but needless to say, it has been I wouldn't say this a interesting week of Big Brother, but more so like a rough start with something of an impactful finish. I mean, tonight's episode was not expecting a ton of cheers to go the way that they were. But hey, it was a unique eviction night, quite honestly, with some very interesting stuff going down the night before and today of that eviction. But we're going to go over that whole week with you. And we're also actually have some surveys to go over by the end of this episode. So we can actually have some stuff to talk about too on top of that. So, how did we get here? How did we get to Adrian leaving tonight at a 8-4 vote? Well, starting out the week, it all came to a head when Life Eats came on, and we saw that Lauren won the HOH. And even crazier, that it was against her and Mickey. Everyone, including myself, was just like, oh boy, this is going to be a rough week. Likely, someone on Rachel's side is going to be targeted. Likely, there's going to be some easy nominations that Lauren's going to make. But turns out, Lauren, just like a lot of other people in this house, want to ride the middle. So much the fact that they are going to do it to be a detriment to their own allies. Literally 3 weeks in a row now, I thought, wow, Vince's HOH was bad. Then following up going into Jimmy's HOH, wow, Jimmy's HOH was horrible. And now looking at Lauren's, I'm like, my God, Lauren, what are you doing? I thought like these other ones were bad. This one is horrid. But as bad as this week was, it still kind of benefited her in the end, weirdly enough. Which is just even more baffling. Um, but with that night that she won the HOH, it was kind of obvious right from the get go that Vince and Jimmy were just like all over her, and then Zach soon after, and it basically essentially came down to Vince and Zach basically like controlling her entire HOH to the point where the whole house was kind of aware of it, and it's so interesting seeing Lauren's perspective on this week that she's like playing to play neutral and yet when called out like, hey, don't let Zach or Vince control your HOH and her being offended by it, despite the fact that those two have been in her HOH room even more so than her this entire week. It's just been very much like Zach and Vince running her HOH, but with her being so afraid to actually make moves, just make the most benign moves that's not beneficial to her, not beneficial to Zach, not beneficial to Vince. And what's even crazier this week, because even though Vince and Zach were basically controlling this HOH, they also played it horribly. This was the week for them to take power. This is the week for sides to be drawn. Lauren didn't want to do it, and Zach and Vince didn't push it. And this has been a trend for this entire week. That whole night, it was just them talking about the noms. Kelly was volunteering to go on the block because, of course. And it was like come to Will's attention that he was going to be nominated. They didn't go into the much detail on it in the show, but when it came to the feeds, it really was sounding like Lauren wanted to nominate Will as a pawn, but also because of the fact, even though she was in alliance with him, they rarely talked. But again, it was just like he was still in your alliance. An alliance that I'm talking about, which is obviously dead now, is the Bond, which was Lauren, Vince, Zach, Ava, and Will. Those were the five, I believe, that were in that one. And with her nominating Will, it essentially just severed all bonds with Ava at that point. And it kind of just showed that Lauren, Zach, and Vince, especially as the week went on, like looking like a trio. Um, and then going later on with that, we got to see that Keanu was being Keanu this week. He felt like he was like really running the house. Felt like he had an understanding of everything. Ratting out Rachel as per usual. Just really trying to like have control of the game when really no one took him seriously. Even tonight with the eviction, Adrian was surprised that Keanu actually did have his back when he voted to keep him. It was just Keanu being Keanu, and it just everyone was just like really ready for Keanu to go home. And it was Cape to no shock when Lauren put him on the block alongside Kelly and Will. Um, this week, though, it's just been Lauren just being emotional, very much like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I should do. Zach, Vince, help me. And again, Zach and Vince are like really trying to push their agenda, but they're doing it in a way that's like they're not putting their foot down hard enough to really set the bar. And it just really shows with how poor everything with the nominations this week. And it wasn't really too confirmed on the show, but also during that time on the feeds prior to the Sunday episode, um, uh, basically Rachel and Ava did confirm their final two alliance called Double the Fun. Not the best name, but it maybe it's like a workaround one, but maybe they'll stick with that. I don't know. It's just like one of those types of final two deals where you're just like, are you really sticking with that name? Because it feels like it's a workshop one. Another thing to note, though, that when Keanu was going to win that power veto, he approached Ava prior and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to take you on the reward with Rachel," and she's like, "Oh dear God, please no, please no." When she was talking to Will about it, it's like I'm with crazy guy number one and then crazy girl number two. It was like a really fun conversation to see there, but. Um, just like some of the stuff that was like missing from those feeds within those few days that didn't show up on the episodes there. Yeah, pretty much like everything else that I noted from those feed moments was essentially on the show, which good for us. This I feel like this season there are being very much more true to the edit, other than like Keanu getting a hero edit. But I guess they want to have some kind of underdog with this season. Poor Kelly though, she's trying to make herself be, but we'll get into that one. But with the recent episode that we saw on Sunday, Jimmy was obviously salty of Amy calling him out being a snake, which he is, but he felt like no one heard it. But let's be real here: if Jimmy heard it, probably everyone else did. Um, and like Rachel, we saw like her talking about being upset voting out Amy, but like knew that it was like the right decision to be made. Lauren was concerned with the votes, and Will was happy with how it turned out. Like it was kind of like standard, like just convo stuff there with following after the eviction. Um, and then we got to see like Rachel, Morgan, Mickey, and Ashley mourn losing Amy. And Jimmy walks in apologizing. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry this had to happen like this," and it kind of sets the tone of of the girls like really much being apprehensive of Jimmy and just how horrible he played off his HOH. And it's even tonight's episode, it still showed there's like a lack of trust with them and Jimmy. And it's just I don't know how it's gonna work, but with the current issues that's happening within that alliance, Jimmy might be able to make it by for now. But we'll get into that later. And as we saw within that episode too, Adrian and Keanu were kind of hyping each other up for to win HOH, keep each other safe, yada yada there. Um, and then following after that, we got to see the segment of Rachel and Ava making their final two. Since Rachel was knowing, like, well, since I'm going to lose Amy this week, I need to find another number two. And she's like, I'm going to take Ava. And like, they make their deal. And Rachel's like chimes in where it's like, if I sit next to Ava in the end, I'm likely to win. And after this week, I don't think she might have a good chance of that. Because Ava, to me, has really, really pumped up the numbers for her social game. And especially yesterday and tonight, really made the difference with this vote, which was wild to say the least. Um, but we'll get into that part as well later. But going into that HOH competition, um, wow. I was not expecting to see the Nolan twins return. of all people. For those of you who don't know who the Nolan twins were, they were in Big Brother 17. They were the twins twist. Liz came in, and her sister Julia would switch in and out with her for a few weeks, and if they weren't voted out, they would be brought back in, just like the twist in Big Brother 5. It worked. They were in. They made it pretty far in the game. Liz got second place. Um, After the show, for some tea on the twins. Needless to say, they have made some fan content that only the most interested of people would watch, as they would do that content together. Yeah. So yeah, if you didn't know, you know now, and I am sorry that if you this is your way of finding out. But I'm shocked that they were asked back because of that. But needless to say, this is kind of like an anniversary season disguised as just a regular season. So I guess they're just working with what they got for all their, zany characters. I guess they couldn't call back the twins from the fifth season. But anyway, they were basically doing a competition of Q&A off of like an interview that the two had. That was essentially like a ripoff of like the Australian twins that were talking in an interview as well. And it came down to essentially Lauren and Nikki. And it, again, if Lauren knew how bad her HOH was going to go, I would not be surprised if she had thrown it to Nikki. It was just like, it was so bad. But Lord won, and later on we get to see throughout the episode Mickey talking about how, oh, should I use my power? Should I not? And it's going to probably be a theme that we're going to be seeing probably for multiple Sundays from now for these HOH competitions because they want to like have everyone know it's like, yeah, Mickey has this power that she could take an HOH. Problem is, pretty much the whole house knows about it. At this point, there's no reason for this whole conversation because likely, if even if Mickey does use it, it's going to be a flop. Unfortunately, loose lips sink ships in this game. That's all I can say. And we get to see that Lauren, when rejoicing her win with Vince, talk about not people getting in your ear, ha ha, that, as well as mentioning how they have a final two together, which Lauren and Vince is odd as a final two, but there's a lot of odd things going on in this game, so I'll let that roll as it is. A lot of people, like including myself, assume that Lauren and Catherine were very close in this game, but I don't know. With how this week went, I feel like her closest ally is definitely now looking like Vince. So I don't know what happened with her and Catherine to be so disconnected at this point in the game. But the fact is, like, I feel like she's closer with Vince, she's closer with Zach, and maybe it's because of the Riley factor in all of this, but it's just like she's just not connecting as much with her anymore. They're still allies, but I don't think they're ride or dies as much as they thought they were. Who knows? But after that, we basically got to see Rachel and Ashley pep talk each other. With Rachel doubting herself, this is definitely a new experience for Rachel because in Big Brother 12 and Big Brother 13, she had a lot of the HOH powers early in the game. In 12, she won the second week HOH, she won the fourth week HOH, essentially guaranteeing herself jury. And in Big Brother 13, she won the first HOH, and her alliance just kept on getting power every other week. This is a Rachel that's like very much relying more so on her social game more than anything because she's not winning comps and she's very much second guessing herself, doubting herself. It's like, I used to be this good. Why am I not winning? And when really it's like, this is an older Rachel. She's had kids. She's very much just like, you know, going from a 12 season gap between like her last appearance on the show as a player. Actually, not even a 12 season gap, a 14 season gap. What am I saying? But Ashley's like hyping her up, just like telling her like, look, you're still here, you're still doing good, and I still think she's in a really good position because even if she were to be on the block, I don't think many would vote her out. I feel like she'd be safest on the block against anyone, really, for the most part, especially if it's like a Kelly or a Keanu. Whew, she was 100% safe in that scenario. But yeah, I think Rachel is just like has her moments of like weakness and like self doubt here and there. But again, I think it's also because again she is a mom now, and she is missing her kids, so it's like it is definitely an experience. It's not like her being in the castle at Traders where she's gone for a few weeks. This is like a whole 3 months, so I can understand like the pain she's kind of going through there. But after that, we kind of get a funny yoga segment after that, where Ashley proves she's not the best at yoga, and Rachel is just like trying to help her the best as she can, and then we follow into that with an obligatory New Yorker pizza pie conversation with Ava and Vince, and as a Chicagoan, I don't say pizza pie. I worked at a pizzeria for 10 years, and I just call it pizza. Like just not pizza pie, not rock the za. Like I just say pizza. I don't know. It's definitely a regional thing, probably. I don't know what entails people to call it a pizza pie, but that was a whole thing, and that was a segment. But yeah, and then following after that, we get like actual like strategy conversations in the episode. Keanu trying to convince Lauren, and like Lauren and Ashley talking, Mickey and Lauren talking, while still sussing about her power, and then just like multiple talks here and there, and it's like so many of them, as well as like when it's seen on the live feeds, you just see Lauren staring off in the distance, looking at the monitor in her HOH room, just see outside, talking so deadpan, so like monotone. And again, I'm so hoping not to see much of Lauren on the show much after this because her DRs are horrible. Like she is just so monotone. Have her on 2 times speed personally because she is just not a good DR person. And again, just when talking in general, it's just like you could tell at certain conversations she just doesn't want to listen and she's just trying to pan off into the distance. But ultimately, nominations come. She takes the easier route, nominates Keanu, nominates Kelly because she volunteered. And again, much to Will's chagrin, nominates him. And he definitely tells off on her a little bit prior to the nomination, which, again, I love Will, but he needs to have more pep in his step. He needs to have more urgency in his voice to tell people why he should not be nominated. Unfortunately, though, he's on the block next to Will and Kelly, or next to Keanu Kelly, and yeah, we thought the episode there. Throughout this whole week in the episodes, Will just keeps calling it like these weak nominations, bitch ass moves, like stuff like that. Which again, like I want to see more of that Will appear to these kids because that's going to relate to them still. Like you want to have some form of fight, dude. Have the fight. But yeah, and then following on after that, like of anything of note with the nominations and stuff, or following after this episode with the nominations, a lot does go down on Monday as well as Sunday night. But I kind of want to bring that up into the POV episode. So we're just gonna go straight to the episode. Uh, so for Wednesday night's episode yesterday, it's a veto episode. And basically, start the episode, Lauren basically talking about like her intended target is Keanu. Will's not happy being a pawn, and all of his allies, the women, and Jimmy are not happy with that. Jimmy talks to Lauren and Catherine about Will. Jimmy in the DR talks about his alliances, and I feel like this was kind of something that was like kind of like glossed over on the show, but like during Jimmy's HOH week, he had something of a bond with Catherine and Lauren that I feel like part of the reason why I felt his week of his HOH was bad is that he did not hold on to it. He did not play off his HOH well in keeping Catherine and Lauren as a number because he's talking to them, he's hanging with them, but they just don't see him as an ally at this point. And he's trying to put some influence on it for renoms, but later on in the episode and within the feeds, it was very much so the women encouraging or enticing Lauren rather to have a different nominee in mind for the renom situation. Um, and we had a fun segment about Ava's mini showmance, like opinions that she would have on her cast. And basically, she's like, I'm not interested in any of the men. I think the person that I would only want to have a showmance with is Rachel. And I'm just like, I'm loving it because her and Rachel, like every day, I feel like they've become closer and closer and closer. And I think the two really have a bond. And I think that bond really has solidified that final two that they had. A lot of us were apprehensive about it. It was like, oh, maybe this is like something thrown on the wall and see if it sticks. But I think now it is actually starting to feel like, yes, Rachel and Ava have a final two together. They get along together so well. And quite honestly, I think they just like have a strong bond at this point. And again, Ava really builds up on her social game this week. That's really made the difference in tonight's episode, actually, for the eviction. But following after that segment, um, we also have Jimmy and Rachel's fashion conversation, the fashion 2.0 one, as I like to call it, where Jimmy rags on Rachel with some of her stuff, and I kind of on Team Jimmy with that one, with that outfit she was choosing. Again, Rachel has some good hits with her outfits. Other times, though, oof. And like, I'm not like the fashion connoisseur. I mean, I'm wearing like a jokey shirt today, but it's like, you know, I can understand some fashions, but I just don't know that like, a gold lawn skirt and what Rachel is wearing. I'm like, ah. I mean, we're gonna find out because of that the BB after show, which I did watch on Friday, and I don't think I'm gonna be watching it for the whole season. One, I'm not a big Derek fan, and two, it's just the format I don't really care much for. As much as I love Taylor Hale, I just don't think it's like really useful for the episodes. They do show some deleted scene content, but I just don't think it's enough for me to like really put in the time and effort into that when I can do other things on Friday night. But what we did learn is that there's a vote, and that the vote is for who's going to get gooed. I feel like they're going to be like in some form of like, I don't know, slime cabin thing, kind of like Nickelodeon awards. I don't know, for like the worst dressed in the house, and America votes for it. I'd imagine Rachel's going to get the votes, either her or Jimmy. I'd imagine, but who knows? Maybe it's someone else, and Rachel and Jimmy get to bicker about their fashion another day. Um, but yeah, we also have then after that, Will and Ashley having a conversation together. Will seeing Ashley kind of like as one of his daughters, really bonding, kind of saying up that like, yeah, he's gonna pick her for the for the veto ceremony, not veto ceremony, veto competition. And then after that, we also get like another Keanu hero edit with him talking to Adrian. Again, production really loves Keanu, and Keanu's good TV. I'm not denying that. The dude is cracked. He is just like he thinks the world revolves around him. Like the whole world is his D&D campaign, but he is not a good player. But they are really, really trying to make him look like he has some agency in the game. Um, and speaking of agency, apparently Ashley does not know who Clark Kent is. We had a whole segment about Ashley not knowing that Clark Kent is Superman. Um, I will say I did see Superman last week. Go see it. Really good movie. Definitely felt like a good, fun superhero movie for all the family to see. Uh, and at least you'll understand who Clark Kent is. But following after that, we get the Zach, Morgan, Lauren love triangle segment when in reality, it's like Morgan has feelings for Zach, Zach has feelings for Lauren, Lauren has feelings for no one. it's just like it's so awkward. I feel so bad for Morgan, where it's just like she is like fawning for Zach, and to a point where it's like really becoming a detriment to her allies and her. And I feel like it's going to come to a head, not this week. Well, maybe this week. I don't know, depending on who wins HOH, but in the coming weeks at the very least, especially after tonight's app confirming it. But yeah, it's just like the whole segment's like really trying to push for this love triangle, but it's a no man's in the making. Nothing's really going to come out of any of these three. It's just like again, Big Brother's got a Big Brother. They got to push something of a showman segment, and Riley being the creep that he is to Catherine ain't gonna help for the edit either, because when they tried it for Caleb and 16 for Amber, whoo, ugh, not good, not good. But following after that, we get multiple conversations with Vince, with the nominees and Lauren, and how he would use the veto on them. And he's just like, I hope I don't get picked for the veto ceremony or veto competition. Enter the veto selection part, where we see Vince selected and Ashley selected. And Vince, and we had like a little fun little montage. Everyone saying like, "Ah, I want Vince to win." Kind of like a la like, "Oh, I trust Andy" segment from Big Brother 15, kind of. But yeah, and for the competition, it was a promotion for the Bad Guys 2 movie. And you could tell the actors were really wanting to be anywhere else but talking to the Big Brother house. You didn't even have like some of the other leads in that to talk to them. So it was just like so funny and so awkward just seeing some of those cast members like say, "Hey, here's your chance to win, a chance to see the Bad Guys too if you win the competition." And Rachel, knowing when to have her cue, basically was like, "I love the Bad Guys too. My kids and I have watched the first one so many times." And I'm like, it is, like love sending some love to the cameras, but I think it is true. I think Rachel, being the mom that she is, I think she really has like watched that movie playing with her kids. She's talked about it on the feeds. She's like mentioned like on a random segment that I like love seeing from the feeds where she just randomly shouts out chicken jockey. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, Rachel is 100% seen so many kids movies with her kids, so I know that's like something she's very much like attuned to. So I feel like part of it's like for the cameras, part of it is definitely true. And the competition is was very interesting too. I actually like that. It's like a rehash of the spy thing competition where they all have to go through the laser lights and everything and hope to not set up the alarm, which to me was like looked super easy until they had to grab the heist item that they had to grab, which was like a giant crystal contorting different ends, basically, and so that way it could like trip off those lights a lot faster. Um, and from what the competition looked like, I for someone as big as Keanu, he killed it surprisingly. You think someone that was as petite as like Lauren, who says she has dance background, or someone like in that same stature as Ashley, could potentially have a good chance of winning. And then you see Vince just like, well, I gotta do this, this, and this to make sure that I'm throwing the competition, and I hope I do it right. Vin, Vince, Vinny, uh, they don't show the whole like six people's times anymore. You could just wait out the whole thing because yeah, you were in third place, but you could have easily potentially might have won even if you went so slow as you did. Uh, would have been wild if you did win that there. That would have been hilarious if that were the case. But top three for that competition, it was Vince, third place. And then in second place, it was Lauren, and Keanu wins. So, obviously, Keanu's going to use the veto on himself. He's going to take himself off the block, and then Arena's going to go up. And then following after that, we get the segment that I was hoping to make the show, where apparently the Big Brother grass in the backyard is made of asphalt or something because Mickey was eating with a ceramic bowl on a hammock with popcorn in it. Ava like hops on down next to her and they just lose balance and she drops the bowl and it shatters. And just like, one, why are you using a ceramic bowl for popcorn? Two, again, what is in that grass? Because it was not that far of a drop. So I don't know what the heck happened to have a drop like that. Because like, whew, like if there's like something that can be easily breakable like that, I'm like concerned at times for some of the stuff that the Big Brother players are using in that kitchen. um, but yeah, we then talk about see like Adrian and Kelly talk about the Reno situation and them not wanting to be next to each other in the block, and then we get Vince and Lauren talking about likely nominating Ashley. This is very predominant because Vince and Zach were very much like getting into Lauren's ear and telling her, "We got to do Ashley. We got to do Ashley. We have to do Ashley." And so it's like Lauren's like, "Yeah, we'll do Ashley. We'll do Ashley." But then she's also panicking. It's like, oh, but what if I do this? Does that mean I'm going to put a line in the stand? Does that mean I'm not going to be in my neutral position anymore? Oh no, I didn't think about this. Oh God, Vince, Zach, what do I do? What do I do? Maybe we shouldn't do Ashley. It was so much of that. And I'm just like, oh my God, Lauren, please don't ever win HOH again, for the love of God. Uh, so bad. And following after that, we get Rachel coming up to speak to Lauren. And it was a very much like her being sincere. It wasn't like strategic in any way. She's like, you are a strong, independent woman. Don't let a 30 something jobless dude tell you what to do. You be you. And it was, again, very sincere. Lauren, however, thinks, oh, Rachel, why are you telling me this? I don't like, do you really care about me? No, you're just telling me not to listen to Vince. Ugh, you were so horrible. And she then immediately tells Vince. And then, like, Vince, after hearing this, and I believe this also helps affect this outcome, that he's like, oh, well, I don't want to push too much then on Ashley if everyone's thinking that I'm the one calling the shots when you were in the HOH room pretty much since Lauren won it. So, maybe put two and two together there. Um, but yeah, not good. Not good for Rachel in that regard. But again, a lot of these people have the haterade in them for Rachel for some reason, which is unfortunate. Um, and then after that, we get the segment of the Mr. Wolf in a giant fursuit, getting very big furry vibes, with a car in the backyard that's like it shows up. It's like, hey, here for the premiere for Bad Guys 2. Keanu, pick your three people that you want to see the movie with you. And it was so obvious who those three were because you look at everyone and you see Rachel in like a green dress with like gloves and everything, Ava looking snappy, Jimmy looking snappy. It's like, okay, I think we know who you're going to pick. I think he was told ahead of time on that part. It would be very interesting to just like see Rachel like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, that's just like what I wear on a regular. No, but he picks those three. They go watch the movie. They give like the standard Flair reactions and stuff. Nothing will ever top though Sophie in Survivor South Pacific's reaction, being all wide eyed and just like confused by the showing of Jack and Jill. And yeah, so they watched the movie. They said it was great. Blah blah blah. There and there. Nothing too special. It's nice to see that Big Brother's still doing movie rewards and stuff on occasion. You don't really ever see that in Survivor anymore. So kudos to them on that. And then basically after that, we have a situation in a room where Will, Rachel, Morgan, Ashley, Nikki talk about the Reno situation and are trying to push for Adrian to go up. Now, it was shown on the show, but there were so many conversations that was going down that led to this Reno. Part of it was the Mickey conversation with Lauren and her even prayed. And this is like, might add, like an hour or two before the Renubs happened, where essentially Lauren is still on the fence. Like, do I do Ashley? Do I do Adrian? Do I do Ashley? Do I do Adrian? But within that wasn't showing the show. Keanu goes into a room prior to Mickey. He's pushing for Ashley, and Ashley is starting to think, well, what if Keanu's pushing this? This might not be good for my game. And Mickey then noted that to her in that conversation, where they even showed Keanu fist bumping Adrian, where like even had her more like, oh no, oh no. And then Ava came up too, and it was just like telling her, it's like, you need to make the right decision for you and everything. And it just like got in her head some more on that. And then right before the feeds went down, when she was called to the diary room for the veto ceremony, Zach and Vince essentially run up to the HOH room to strong arm her to essentially like, hey, we got to do Ashley. We got to do Ashley. And with Lauren's like, but earlier, and I meant this early, meant to say this as well earlier, and it was like a conversation in the night going into the day where she essentially made a deal with Ashley, and essentially the side that was Rachel and Jimmy's, that they will protect her until jury. And again, this is why I think this is like a horrible week for Lauren, yet still benefits her in some way. And this is one of the ways that benefits her. And she basically tells Vince and Zach this. And again, so much of this week could have changed. Is Vince and Zach had a backbone, but they didn't, and they were just like, "Well, you do you, Lauren. Even though the right decision is Ashley, you do you." And again, they were literally going out of their way to strong arm her right before called into the diary room, even called again, and it's just like they basically just got let the gas off the pedal, and they were just like, "All right, Lauren, you do you." And Lord behold, the veto ceremony happens. Keanu takes himself off the block. Adrian goes up, which leads to just Vince and Zach just being in just total like annoyance of the whole situation. Which again, probably wouldn't have happened if they just put further emphasis on this whole situation. Again, so much of this week hinged on Lauren's indecisiveness, Zach and Vince having a spine, and when I'm going to say this, Ava's social game. Because going into tonight's episode, Ava again, I'm like not joking here. Ava might be having one of the strongest social games right now in the game because her her conversations with Vince and Zach made the difference of Adrian's staying or leaving. Hell, even having a tie vote that would have had Lauren like had to choose who to go home. It was wild with these last 24 hours with this. So let's just like jump into the episode talk, and then I could talk more about what happened. So within the episode, we see Kelly and Vince talk. You know, she's upset with Adrian going up, feels like she's going home, which pretty much was the case. You know, if she's up against Adrian, she's gonna go no matter what. She's up against Will, she's gonna go no matter what. So she at least has the right call there. But I don't have any sympathy for her because again, girl, you volunteered on the block 3 times now. You're not going to get a reward for this. And she keeps on saying throughout the episodes this week, it's like, I know people are going to owe me now for doing this. It's like, no, they're not. They're just going to put you up again. And I'm just like, girl, no. It's so bad. So bad. um, but yeah, Vince is torn on who to save. He kind of just like feels like I'm gonna do what I do, but I'm gonna wait till the blockbuster comp happens, and hopefully I'll be able to make my decision. And again, indecisive Vince, like dude, like you gotta choose a side. But yeah, we get Kat and Lauren talking about who they want home. They kind of want it to be Will. Again, still want to ride the middle. Blah blah blah. There. Adrian is acting confused on the renom. Will talks about how hard it is to relate to everyone, and just Adrian's feeling like I need to win this. I need to win. Um, and you know, also see Zach saying how he feels that Will has the votes, but doesn't know if they could take Will out. Again, they definitely did. Um, but it leads into like the big talk of tonight, which was the Morgan and Nikki like allegiance kind of getting fractured here because of the Jimmy situation, for one, of how they don't trust him, and then Morgan's closeness to Zach, which is really fracturing their bond. And Zach was kind of pushing in on that because Adrian ratted out on some of the things Mickey told him that got back to him that he relayed to Morgan, which had Morgan just like punch in the punching bag, which I was hoping there was going to be a segment like this at some point this season, and her just taking her frustrations out on it. So we don't know what's going to come of it. but it's just very much noted right now that their relationship is very rocky at the moment. And I don't mean the boxer. And essentially, after that, it's just like Lauren, Vince, and Zach having a conversation, saying Adrian's better to stay over Will. Again, just a lot of the whole like spiel of like, yeah, Adrian needs to stay. And then we go to the blockbuster. But we need to talk about everything that led up to, before the blockbuster. So last night on the feeds, Zach and Vince were essentially just like, we might need to push for this vote. We might need to push for this vote to happen so that Adrian stays over Will or Kelly stays over Will. And Lauren, this entire week, is telling them, I don't want a tie vote. I don't want to draw a line, even though lines are essentially drawn. And Vince is essentially like, okay, we won't have a tie vote. How about this, though? We approach Ava to flip the vote. And for one, the worst person you want to approach with this because they're really under the assumption that Ava will likely flip because of her personality, because of her nature, because of her quirkiness. But the right person they should have went to in all this was Morgan. Morgan is close to Zach. Morgan wants to have a final four with Vince, Zach, and Mickey. She was the person to approach on this to flip, not Ava, not Ava who's been close to Will since the first week in the game. And last night they essentially tried to strong arm her the same way they tried to strong arm Lauren, but Ava was just like telling them like, no, let's mull this over. Let's talk about it tomorrow for the eviction day. Blah blah blah. There, and I wish we would have saw more of it, but unfortunately, the live feeds decided we're going to cut on this, and I'm like, why? Why? Of all the conversations you need to cut, this was probably the most important conversation going into the eviction tonight. And I'm glad it continued to today because holy crap, it was. Um, because today on the morning feeds, essentially Vince and Zach were trying to do this again to Ava, and Ava essentially told them, at, like, why are we doing this to protect Adrian when we're literally going to be seen as aligned with Keanu, Kelly, Riley, Catherine? We are going to be targets on top of this when we have four easy targets if we vote the other way. Even if we were wrong, those people would still be targets. Ava was setting her foot down and essentially gave the correct information to Vince and Zach on why this vote would not work this way, literally even for her. And it essentially just stops Zach and Vince pushing further. It has Zach and Vince just like, I guess we can't do this now. I guess we're going to have to vote out Adrian or Kelly in whatever the scenario is. And those conversations they had with Ava essentially not only saved Will, but also really showed she has some good social capital in this game and strong, like, ways to really make her voice heard and able to really show that she is playing the game. And she even later on in the morning, it's like, I think I made a big move. I think I just flipped these guys and made sure the vote sticks, which I agree with. This was Ava's night. This was the week for Ava. Everyone that benefited from this week the most is 100% Ava. You know, she got to keep Will. Adrian got to go home. She basically has the whole house wanting to work with her, has the whole house talking to her, giving her information. She has all the cards now. I believe she is probably in the best position in this game right now. And what she did last night and today from those conversations with Vince and Zach essentially guaranteed she has all the cards in her hand. And I'm very interested to see how it's going to be going into next week after tonight. Um, that all being said, we had the blockbuster comp, which had a very interesting version of just like what's different from this room, like two separate rooms set up, and they had to guess like how many things are different in that room. And the correct number was, I believe, eight. So Kelly said seven, Adrian said six, and Will, for some reason, said 16. I don't know if it was just in panic or he was just like counting a lot more things than he thought he was, but Either way, Kelly won. She was the closest to the correct number without going over. She was safe, and immediately Adrian and Will hug it out, and Adrian is just bawling. And it's like, I don't know if Adrian knew he was going to go home or not, but oh my God, it was emotional. And I was like thinking, like, man, it's going to get worse. Cut to commercial and come back. Julie tells the house Kelly wins the competition, entering Adrian. Everyone's hugging Adrian. Everyone's getting emotional. And then when it was time to give speeches, Will comes up and just immediately breaks. He is crying hard. He turned around from the cameras to cry, and he turns around, barely gets out anything, just says, He's a good guy. He does not swear. He's such a good person. I mean, if you want to vote me out, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, this is getting rough. And then Adrian's bursting crying too. Everyone's crying. I'm like, oh my God, I was not expecting it to be this rough of a vote. Holy crap. It got very emotional. But unfortunately, end of the day, it was an 8-4 vote. Riley, Kat, Keanu, and Catherine, or Kelly, um, before them voted to evict Will, while the rest of the House voted to evict Adrian. And Adrian leaves the house with, oh yeah, there was a segment about his weird date with, I believe, a prop sourdough bread that he leaves with the house. Weird stuff there. I don't know, but I think that's what Adrian's legacy is going to be, the sourdough bread date. You know, I remember him like in the beginning of the season saying, I'm a legend. I'm a legend going into this game. You don't even know it yet. And basically, the sourdough bread has more of a personality and memorability than he ever will in this game. Sorry, Adrian. And in like the interview with Julie, he was surprised that Keanu was actually true to him, and that he basically said he was going to target Rachel as or Jimmy later in the line. I'm like, okay, bye, 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 dude. You can go, Adrian. I can care less about you. And unfortunately, I was gonna like hope to see the last of the episode, but unfortunately, my Paramount Plus glitched, and I just like had like the last glimpse of the interview with Julie and Adrian, and everything just went down. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see the last 2 minutes of whatever the conversations was happening, but you know, whatever happens, happens there. So that was this weekend, BB. A very lackluster start with Lawrence HOH, with her just like really just not knowing how to handle the power, and basically Will like struggling to find his voice in the game, and Vince and Zach finally and struggling to find a spine. But I can most definitely say Ava found her voice. That's for damn sure. Um, but let's go into my weekly rankings here. So, starting this week, I am ranking the following people from 14th to first, and starting from the bottom, once again, Keanu. Keanu is gonna be everyone's radar. He's likely gonna be the safe nom, and more likely, if the opportunity is there to take him out, probably it's gonna happen. It just no one trusts Keanu. This entire week, Keanu is living in La La Land. He had a conversation the other night with Rachel where he's just like, "Here's what's happening in the Big Brother house, and why you and Jimmy are on the bottom." And Rachel's just like nodding along. And again, this is why I feel like this is the better version of Rachel, because this is a grown Rachel who was just like very much like playing along with Keanu, nodding along and everything. But he just does not know what's happening in the game, and essentially if the opportunity is there to take him out, it's going to happen. And then following after Keanu, it's Kelly. Hey, these two are going to be on the bottom for a while, I feel. Kelly, once again this week, volunteered for the third time, thinking like it's going to like do a difference for her game when it's really not. Like Kelly, maybe stop volunteering. Maybe actually play the game while not on block. Maybe you can actually get some leeway. But had Kelly not win the blockbuster tonight, she would have gone home most likely by a 12-0 vote. So to her, she needs to step it up, but I doubt that's going to happen. And then following after Kelly in the 12 spot, I got Vince. Vince this week had a horrible, horrible week. He has been playing the middle so perfectly until now. This week really had everyone look at him like, okay, Vince might be a threat. Vince might be playing hard. Vince is doing a lot, but he's not putting his foot down. The problem with that, and even though he's like, oh, I didn't do this, so I'm not going to have eyes on me, everyone already knows what you were trying to do this week. Everyone knows what you were planning. And especially Ava, who, if any of her allies win HOH this week, she's going to 100% tell them, like, yeah, Vince was trying to flip the vote on Will. Like, I don't see a good position right now for Vince, and I can see him easily going on the block next week. And it's just like he better hope someone like a Catherine or a Zach or a Riley or even himself wins HOH. Otherwise, I feel like he's going to be up next to Keanu and Kelly. Following after him, I have Riley. Riley again, how do you know he's in the game other than like one mention from the Ava conversation and another mention of the car stuff from the POV competition? Like he's the biggest coaster in this game, and I hate that it's working for him. But at the very least, it means he's safe for now. But it doesn't mean he's really doing anything in the game worthwhile at the moment. And following after that in the 10th spot is Kat. Catherine, again, her closeness with Lauren should have really helped affected this week. She didn't take any opportunity with that. She did not know much for the votes tonight. She was on the wrong side again. I just don't think that she's in a good position moving forward. Is she in a safer position being next to someone like Keanu, Riley, or anyone? Most likely. But is that going to be position going to help her long term in this game? Not so much. And then following after that, I got Lauren. Lauren, like, I'm happy that you're probably going to have safety for a long while, but you had a horrendous HOH. Your HOH was god awful. And it still got awful to the point where it's like, yes, you have safety from all ends, but your HOH was so horrendous. I don't know how it's going to affect your game overall moving forward. I don't think you're going to have such good leeway moving forward into this game, other than people just like seeing you as like eviction fodder at some point. And then following after Lauren, I have at eight. I have Morgan. Morgan, I feel like is not in a good position now. Her allies are starting to turn on her. They're starting to question her. Her closeness to Zach and Vince has really deadened her game, and so much is being said behind the scenes about Morgan that if she could easily be a target early, maybe not right now, but if the other side wins HOH, I can see a scenario where she could probably go up. So not good stuff there. And then following after Morgan at seven, I have Will. Will, again, I have hopes for Will. I hope he can do well in this game. He's had a rough start, but he has strong allies willing to fight for him. So he is doing something right there. But I need to see some more agency out of him. I need to see him actually show that he is here to play the game. But it is so hard to do that when he's not doing much for campaigning. So I have to unfortunately have him at seven, but he's still in a better position than everyone else. And at six right now, I have bumped down Zach. Zach, again, just like Vince this week, put himself in a position where he should have led the charge to get Will out. They had the numbers, they had the votes, but he did not put that down. And now there's information out there that Zach wanted to flip on this and is likely going to be spread around at some point. And on top of that, the only reason why I have him a little higher is because he still has his 10K advantage thing to keep him safe off the block. But that's even if he uses it correctly. I feel like though he can recover from this because he has more allegiances with people in this game than some of the other people that I feel like he'll keep himself safe. It's just a matter of how long. Um, but then going into our top five, at five, I got Ashley. Ashley by all means, should have been on the block this week. By all means, she should have been a replacement nominee. By all means, she most likely should have been the one evicted. Yet somehow her social game and her allies kept her off the block, kept her in Lauren's ear to make that safety deal, to basically assure her safety this week. And on top of that, she is gaining more ground with people like Rachel, people like Mickey, people like Jimmy, and really pushing a break between Morgan and them. She is putting herself into a better position in this game, and I do think she has put herself in a strong spot. I do, however, worry with her concerns with Mickey and Morgan. If she's really pushing for this Morgan split with Mickey, I can see her putting up Morgan, and this could be a whole scenario where that could really blow up in Ashley's face. So I'm hoping Ashley doesn't go that route, but it's a likely scenario. That's why I have her at 5 currently. And then at 4, I have Jimmy. Jimmy had a horrendous HOH last week. He had some bad moments where he pretty much dropped allies. And he's had moments this week where he like tried to strong arm um, Vince and Zach the same way Zach and Vince were strong arming people. The difference was Jimmy still gets away with it because he's got the numbers. He's got the people to back him up. And unlike Vince and Zach, he has something of a spine. He's putting his foot down when he needs to. And for that reason, I think he can really use his social game properly, even if it does irk people. Am I saying that he's the best? Far from. But at least right now, he's in a decent position. And in number 3 right now, I got Rachel. Like I said, Rachel, I think, is still in a strong position. I still think if she was to be nominated at any point, she would still stay because people still want to keep her to jury. People still see her as a number. People still trust her. Like, yes, there's people that don't like her, but those people that don't like her still want to work with her. Keanu wants to work with Rachel still. It's baffling, this relationship with Keanu and Rachel, where they've gone this whole week talking to each other. Keanu's like right down on Rachel, but still wants to work with her, giving her information or what he thinks is information. And for that reason, Rachel is still holding strong. It's wild, but it's working for her. So for that reason, I got to give it to Rachel. And I got to give her props where she has strong bonds with people. She's making her game known. She had Keanu take her for the Bad Guys 2 screening, so there's got to be something there to say of that. And quite honestly, I feel like she has more momentum going for each and every week. She's in a position where she's not winning comps, but she's in the position now where she's using her voice to actually elevate her game rather than her comp expertise. And I feel like this is helping her game more so than it did in 12 and 13. So now at number 2, I got Mickey. Mickey, again, she's playing the game strong right now. She's playing the game really well. The only thing I can deter her on is her relationship with Morgan right now and how it's kind of fracturing. That is something I really am concerned about with her, and I hope it's something that they can work on. But it's really starting to show that there's a lot of cracks forming, and the fracture can easily happen, and depending on who wins HOH this week. And they could potentially put Mickey in danger. And on top of that, everyone essentially knows her power. If she were to use it, likely it's not going to work. So we'll see how that goes there. But my number 1, I have Ava. Ava made the difference of this vote this week. She made sure Will's the one that stays. She made sure Adrian was the one that goes. She played it perfectly in the conversations this week with everyone and pretty much putting her foot down against Zach and Vince that had them flip back to keeping Will. She has put herself in a strong position socially. Everyone wants to work with her. Everyone still wants to be her friend. Everyone sees her as someone to take far in the game. She is someone I think is in a strong position right now. She is my number 1 at the moment. I don't know how long she's going to last number 1, but at the very least for this week, she played this game perfectly. And for that reason, she is my number 1. And to end the night off, I put out a survey this week for the episodes and everything. And basically what I gathered. So first question I asked, who is your favorite player? And it came down to a tie between Ava and Mickey. My number 1 and number 2. Who'd have thunk? And then on the bottom for your least favorite player this week, we had another tie. Kelly and Riley. I'm not surprised there. Kelly's still very unlikable in the house. She has a very bad attitude. Riley is also just kind of disgusting. He's very much like has a lot of moments where he's just like swearing nonstop on the feeds, just not really being like the nicest person and just being still a creep around Catherine. So kind of expected for those two to be on the bottom. And then when ranking players from best to worst, essentially we got an interesting amount where the top two was Zach, Vince, and Mickey. Um, with the bottom three being Riley, Keanu, and Kelly. Uh, or Riley, Keanu, and Kelly. So, you know, again, not surprised with a lot of these. I am kind of surprised with the Vince and Zach of it all. I feel like people might have saw a lot of faith in Zach and Vince as players. I'm starting to lose a lot of faith in them, but maybe we'll see how this goes. But it's very interesting to see how these people players are being ranked from best to worst right now. And I just don't think Zach and Vince are convincing me that they're playing this game as good as people think they are. But after this, the next question asks, are you satisfied with Lauren's final nominations with a 50-50 split of being yes and no? Personally, I think, like, in my sense, I'm satisfied that the people I wanted to stay stayed, yes. But as for Lauren's HOH, I'm like, no, you played horribly, lady. um, and then for my next question is, who do you think is going home? Majority of the people said Adrian, and kudos to you. You're right. And then I asked after that, rate the episodes this week from 1 to 10, and we got a 8 out of 10. Which personally, I would not put that. I would say maybe a 6 out of 10. It could have been better. It could have been worse, but maybe it was a little bit above average. And then rate the live feeds this week. It was a 7. Personally, I would say it was also a 6. I think it only got good by like Monday for the whole veto ceremony stuff, as well as what happened last night and today. But other than that, it was very much a snooze fest, and dealing with Lauren was just unbearable. And my last question was: there any questions for the podcast? And we had one question asked: how's the feeds promoted 24/7 when they are constantly switched from views, like false advertising? Um, fair statement. A lot of times, like, yes, we get the live feeds, and even though, like, we do get to see a good chunk of the stuff on the time, we have been getting a lot of cuts this season in the live feeds. A lot of like we'll be right back soon and stuff. And like I said, with the whole Ava conversation last night with Zach and Vince, which was really important to this vote, it just was not shown for the most part. And again, a lot of people were seeing what Zach and Vince were doing as soft bullying, which I can agree to. But I think this all stems back to Big Brother 25 with the Luke incident, that production is really trying to play it safe right now with like potential issues that could be done or said in the house. And I feel like this is becoming a little bit of a detriment to the feeds. I hope maybe they can learn from this and do better, but I'm not having high hopes. But what I am having high hopes for is a week without Lauren as HOH. So hopefully whoever wins HOH tonight is going to bring something interesting this season. Maybe they'll finally set the actual structure of the house, because we're 3 weeks in. We don't have any actual alliances. We don't have actually full structures of anything. We need to have like a line drawn in the sand. And I feel like hopefully this week might be it, but who knows who we'll be with. But I got hopes someone will draw the line in the sand, and maybe it'll be this week. And hopefully by next week, I will have this congestion all cleared out, just like Adrian has cleared out of the house tonight. But once again, my name is Kyle Dorr. Thank you for watching or listening to the BB Brains, and I'll see y'all next week.